Boundaries aren't just about what you say no to, they're also about what we say yes to, what kind of relationships we want to be part of, and how we expect to be treated in return. Boundaries demonstrate or model the kind of connection we want to experience. Sometimes you might model emotional presence, being clear, calm, grounded, and attuned, and you're still not being met. There's a specific kind of pain that comes from doing everything right, communicating well, holding space, staying open, and realizing the person across from you still doesn't get it. They say they care, they might even say that they're doing the work, but what you're feeling isn't mutual connection, and sometimes it's even extraction. And over time, it starts to wear on your nervous system, your energy, and your trust in your own clarity. This is the emotional toll of modeling when the other person lacks the capacity to meet you. One of the hardest parts of relational growth is realizing that modeling doesn't always land. Not because you were unclear or too subtle, but because the person on the other end is processing everything through a completely different lens. And the mismatch isn't always obvious. They might nod, mirror your language, say the right things, but underneath, they're not actually getting it. I remember opening up to a partner about my past, about heartbreak, what I'd learned, and how it shaped how I show up now. It was intentional. I was modeling openness, hoping to co-create safety. I wanted him to know me and to understand me, and also know that it was safe for him to do likewise. But what I didn't realize was that he thought it was weird. He assumed I wasn't over my exes simply because I spoke about them. To him, the past was the past. You bury it and move on. So while I thought I was deepening connection, he was silently building resentment, believing I was comparing him to people he didn't even know. That's the risk when someone isn't emotionally attuned. Your vulnerability doesn't land as an invitation, it gets misread. And the more you model, the more misunderstood you feel. What I eventually realized is that the missing piece wasn't willingness or interest, it was attunement. And attunement isn't something you can fake. It's not about saying the right thing, reading the right book, using the right language, or even changing the right behavior. It's about moment to moment emotional presence, staying grounded and connected without analysis, performance, or collapse. When attunement is missing, it can show up in two extremes. Sometimes it looks like disconnection. Your words bounce off. You feel more alone after you share. Other times, it's too much. Emotional dumping, oversharing, enmeshment. They're flooded with their feelings and there's no room for yours. In both cases, you're left doing all the relational labor. You're holding the emotional center of gravity, and that's not what a real relationship is built on. What makes it even harder is that they often believe they do get you. They repeat your words, they say the right things, but they're not responding to you in real time. They're responding to a projection. And it's not usually about bad intent, it's about capacity. You're trying to have a 12th grade conversation with someone operating at a 4th grade level emotionally. And no amount of modeling can fill that gap. When you're the only one in a relationship who is emotionally attuned, the toll builds slowly, but deeply. At first, it feels like a minor disconnect. Then it becomes chronic misunderstanding. And then eventually, you're carrying the whole thing. You start shrinking, you over-explain, you internalize their inability to meet you. You start wondering if you're too much, too intense, too sensitive. And I've been there. My coach warned me, if resentment starts creeping in, it's a sign your modeling isn't being received. You're carrying too much of the emotional weight. And she was right. I kept showing up with clarity and care, but it wasn't landing. It was actually being distorted. My words were twisted, my intentions misunderstood, and eventually my body started breaking down. I had strange physical symptoms, constant dysregulation, and exhaustion I couldn't explain. Because emotional misattunement isn't just relational, it's physiological. And I couldn't override the truth anymore. This wasn't just not working, it was hurting. Here's what I had to learn the hard way. You can't model someone into attunement. You can speak clearly, you can embody emotional integrity, you can show up with love. But if someone hasn't built the capacity in themselves, they can't meet you there. Because attunement isn't something you absorb through proximity, it's not something you want your way into, and it's definitely not something you fake with the right words. It's a skill, an embodied relational skill. It lives in the nervous system, and if someone hasn't done the work to build that internally, modeling alone won't get them there. Your modeling might offer a glimpse, but it's not a bridge, and it's not your job to carry them across. If you're modeling emotional presence, clear communication, boundaries, attunement, and you're still not being met, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong, and it doesn't mean you're asking for too much. It means you're offering something the other person doesn't have the capacity to receive. And yes, that's painful because you're showing up in good faith. You're not performing, you're living your truth. And I want you to hear this clearly. Your modeling still matters. It matters because it keeps you in alignment with your values. It matters because it teaches your children what real relational presence looks like. It matters because someone else emotionally available will recognize it immediately. And most of all, it matters because it's proof that you're not abandoning yourself in order to stay connected to someone who can't meet you. You're not modeling to get a result. You're modeling because this is who you are. And even if it didn't create change in them, it creates clarity in you. And that is never wasted. So keep modeling, because modeling is also how we set boundaries. It's how we show others how we want to be met in relationship, by showing up for ourselves in that way first. Boundaries are about how we behave, not how they respond. And when we model emotional presence, we're establishing a boundary about what we're available for, not just what we're not. When their response is misattunement, that gives us clarity, not failure. It's information, and it helps us make a more informed decision about how to proceed. Just don't confuse someone's inability to meet you as a sign that it isn't worth it. It is. It's everything. If you're ready to experience what true emotional attunement actually feels like in a safe, supported space, come join me in Beyond the Butterflies, my women's coaching circle. It's where we practice this in real time, because once you know what it feels like to be met, you'll never settle for anything less again.